The Red Wings and Predators play for Europe, and the Avs and Kings made DJ Smith's debut one to remember. The Jackets blew another third-period lead. Could they solve their problems Team USA style? Plus, we're going to go rapid fire on some burning questions surrounding the 12 teams that played tonight in our final segment as the trade deadline nears. All that and more coming up on tonight's edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network around. Thrilled to have you all with us. You can like and subscribe and follow our shows on YouTube. And you can also find this show at your preferred podcasting platform. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I'm Alex Wiederspiel. I write about hockey for Yard Barker. I'm also a play-by-play. I dabble on more of the college scene. TJ Shalot is with us. He is a professional play-by-play with experience in the AHL, and he's our co-host, my co-host tonight. What's up, man?
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's good to chat with you.
I was thinking the same thing. The last time you and I were talking, we were poo-pooing all of the doubters for Team USA, and very smartly, you kept the receipts.
I tried. Look, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm some crystal ball all-knower kind of guy. I went with my country because I felt it was unpatriotic if you didn't, and I just so happened to be right on the other side.
I more analytically, I just thought the hand wringing was a little over the top, and lo and behold, the penalty kill was perfect. Of the two players who were most maligned by Team USA fans, they did their jobs literally perfectly. That said, we'll move on to tonight's games. There were 6 games across the NHL this evening of varying interest, perhaps none more so than the game that was at noon today. Detroit and Nashville were playing not just for American audiences, if you wanted to spend some time watching at work, but for European audiences as well. And we'll get into the game in a second, but I honestly had, and I say this as someone who follows the league extremely closely, I had no idea this game was at noon.
You know what? I thought it was pretty cool. I found out about it this morning as well. It feels to me like a baseball, like a business person special where they drop in a 1 o'clock start on a Wednesday or something. And I think that's cool. You know, I love throwing on some hockey while I'm working.
Definitely. And that was one of my favorite parts about the Olympics. I'd be sitting at my desk, and to my right would be my personal laptop, and I'd have that on while I'm working on my work computer as well. So I hope we see more of this in the future. Into the action in this one, Detroit gets the win 4-2. Really nice day for Marco Kasper. 2 primary assists for a guy who had a really tough start to the season, former top 10 pick, still a very young player. He only had 6 points in his first 47 games. He has 9 in his last 13, as Detroit would come from behind, down 2-1 in the second, to score 3 unanswered to end this game with a 4-2 win. Not without some concerns, though. John Gibson got hurt, upper body, possible shoulder. Didn't come back after the first period. The initial thought is they think he's okay, but he is going to get further looked at, and we'll get better word coming up later this week, I'm sure. Cam Talbot was really good in relief, stopped 18 of 19 shots. I thought UC Saros was decent in this one, stopped 27 of 30. I thought Detroit had the slight edge at times in this game, and they get the win 4-2.
Yeah, I just think we saw the Red Wings and their speed on display in this one, and ultimately they were just too fast for Nashville. No matter what the Predators try to do, even if they try to push them to the perimeter, if they were just trying to keep shots from long range, it really didn't matter. As Detroit just seemed to speed right by the defenders. They would work their way around, some of those defensive efforts as they try to push them to the wall. They just slide through the hits. And, look, Detroit, this is a team. I mean, that John Gibson, that's very curious that it's Monday. The trade deadline's Friday. If that's any kind of big injury, even if it's a medium injury and is going to keep him out for like a month and a half, does Detroit now all of a sudden have to look at the goalie market? Maybe something they weren't thinking about doing 24 hours ago. I think that's a very curious ripple.
Something to at least keep in mind. We'll get more into that a little later. Let's give the final word on this one to Brian Fisher of Locked On Detroit Red Wings.
Called out by head coach Todd McClellan. The Detroit Red Wings respond in Nashville with a 4-2 win. Red Wings come out with some jump in this game, got out to an early lead, and really the big reason they got called out was because of the lack of 5-on-5 scoring and the lack of depth scoring, and those did show up in this hockey game. Emmett Finney got the team on the board early with a 5-on-5 goal on a rebound. Albert Johansson got the eventual game winner on a shorthanded goal on a feed from Marco Kasper after a controversial non-call. So the 5-on-5 scoring, the depth scoring, the two biggest needs showed up in this game, and a lot of it came because the team responded to Todd McClellan calling them out. However, it is a little frustrating that the team needs to be called out in order to play this good in a hockey game. John Gibson did leave the game after the first period with some discomfort. Cam Talbot came in, was excellent in relief, but John Gibson's injury, it appears he's going to be okay. Reports are saying that he took a stinger, and then after the game he was okay. So the panic can calm down because we all know that John Gibson is the biggest reason the Red Wings are in such a favorable position heading into the trade deadline here. So the Red Wings start March, which has historically been a pain in the butt for them, 1-0, beating Nashville in Nashville, 4-2.
I will just say, as someone who does like to keep receipts, and I keep receipts of the things I get wrong as well for very different reasons. I picked Detroit to be a playoff team. I picked them to be in the top 3 in the Atlantic Division. And for all the things that I got wrong, that's one that I'm very pleased with. We'll move over to Colorado and Los Angeles, where Colorado gets the win in this one, not without some controversy. As this, had it gone a slightly different way, I think we would be hearing very loud Avalanche fans right now. Colorado gets a 4-2 win, jumped out to a 2-0 lead off goals from Nathan MacKinnon and Gabriel Landeskog. Just, they looked like they were going to run DJ Smith out of the building in his first game as head coach of the LA Kings. Brant Clark for LA scores on the power play, and then Colorado has a 5-on-5 situation, and much like they have all season, it looked like a power play despite them being at 5-on-5. This is early in the second. That's how good this shift was. Nathan MacKinnon was everywhere on this shift, and he fired a shot. I believe it was MacKinnon who fired a shot. It gets lost in the pads for like maybe a quarter of a second of Anton Forsberg and plops out on the other side. Marty Necas puts it through, but as Necas goes to shoot the puck and tap it in on a wide open net, the whistle gets blown, waving off the goal because the official thought that the puck had been frozen by the netminder Forsberg, which of course did not happen. LA would then tie the game. Angus Booth gets his first of his career, just 21 years old, former 4th-round pick just a couple of years ago. But Colorado took care of business in the third. A brilliant sequence setting up Devin Taves for his second goal of the season from Cale Makar, and of course Nathan MacKinnon, who now sits at 99 points on the season. Marty Necas would get the goal back when he scored on an empty netter with 1.2 seconds left. Colorado wins this one 4-2, and Anton Forsberg played pretty well in this one, stopped 36 of 39, but at day's end, it is Colorado who, surprise, surprise, gets another big win, TJ.
Yeah, now they've got 40 on the year, and I think this is a, carbon copy of how they like to play the game, and what they've been doing all year is throw the puck on net. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm sure we could go back through every single game this season. The amount of times they've hit 35 plus is probably a good chunk of their games. I guarantee you it's every game that they've gotten 35 plus, they probably won that game. They're at least 95% in that. Again, I'm just pulling numbers out of my head. I'm just trying to look back at trends, but absolutely. On the other side for the Kings, it looks like a little bit of a role reversal here. I mean, you've got both their goals in this game coming from defensemen. So their defensemen were playing offense, but they also weren't playing defense, because to allow 38 shots, I mean, what are you doing? It almost seemed like, you guys you're too focused on putting the puck in the net. Not that that's a bad thing necessarily, but maybe play a little bit of D as well. I wonder what's going on with this Kings team, with the coaching change, with the acquisition of Artemi Panarin. I mean, that still is a little bit of a head scratcher. I mean, a name like him to, go from New York to LA, you would think it'd go to someone that was a little bit more of a contender, not a team that's got 24 wins, 22 losses, and 14 overtime losses. It's just a little bit of a head scratcher with where their identity and where their focus is right now.
Let's see if Eddie Garcia of Locked On LA Kings and a co-host on this show has anything to say about that.
The LA Kings lose in the debut of DJ Smith as head coach. Kings playing their first game following the dismissal of head coach Jim Hiller. Not only did the Kings take the ice with a new coach, but they had 7 regulars out of the lineup due to injury or illness. As a result, they called up 3 players to make their NHL's debuts, forwards Jared Wright and Kenny Connors and defenseman Angus Booth. The star in this game for the Kings was goaltender Anton Forsberg. He was fantastic all night with 35 saves. The Kings played with a lot of spirit. They played with a lot of hustle, heart. They were flying around the ice. But the Avalanche were by far the better team, as they have shown most of this season. Nathan MacKinnon was as electric as normal, and the Kings just didn't have enough offense to muster a victory in this one, although they had it tied 2-2 until late. But a late goal by Devon Taves, assisted by McKinnon, and then into the empty net to seal us. A 4-2 loss for the LA Kings in the coaching debut in Los Angeles of DJ Smith.
Bet the Kings are probably happy right now that Chris Drury of the Rangers prioritized getting a player who can probably play next year over their first-round pick, because I don't know that LA is not going to be in the lottery conversation if this continues. You mentioned, by the way, a Colorado team that piles on the shots. They also have a tendency to make those. Those are some really like calorically valuable shots. They do not trade quantity for quality. It seems like they find that happy medium between both. A team that struggled with that tonight was the Carolina Hurricanes, who took 83 shot attempts in this one, and only 9 of them were high dangers. They made life easy for Joey Daccord. It was like practice for him. And listen, still got to make the stops, but Daccord stops 35 of 36 tonight as the Seattle Kraken take down the Carolina Hurricanes 2-1. Goals from Kaapo Kakko and Ben Myers. Built a 2-0 lead. Nikolai Ehlers would score late in the second period to try and build some momentum for Carolina, but Seattle shut the door, specifically Daccord shut the door in the third period. And this is always my concern about Carolina, TJ, is I just worry that it's too much quantity, not enough quality with them.
Absolutely. And I know we're going to talk about that coming up a little bit later, so I don't want to pick up the hood too much on that. But Carolina, they're a team that likes to play the Rod Brindamore style game. And you either fit that mold or you don't. And in a game like tonight, I really don't think you can fault Carolina so much. You just have to take your hats off to Joey Daccord. Still, I know they weren't high dangerous chances, stopping 35 of 36. That's a goaltender putting the team on his back. I've seen that in person here in Charlotte a few years back when he was still in the American Hockey League. The guy can absolutely take command of a game and run it for you, and that's exactly what happened here. On the other side, Freddie Anderson, you got to be a little bit better than that. I mean, he was 13 of 15. You're an NHL goalie. If you're only seeing 15 shots in a night, you can't allow 2 of them to get behind you. So, it's just kind of a tale of 2 goaltenders.
One of them was on a 2-on-1, by the way, and Kaapo Kakko, I like that he decided. Listen, I will fully admit I've been plenty critical of Kakko. I like that he decided to shoot it for himself. I think he made the right call on that play. It's a clear-sighted shot. It's just a question of shooter versus goalie, and shooter won that time. More on that coming up. There was quite a bit of disappointment permeating our next segment, at least if you look at it from a season perspective, but there were also a lot of goals tonight to talk about in our next segment, so that'll come along with some breakout performances for young stars. That's all coming up here on Locked On NHL Game Night. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. Some of our teams somehow are still dragging along. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. Now, FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits the read. You can mix spreads, totals, player props, match how you see the slate playing out, and then apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Look at odds around your team. If they are in season, go safe, go bold. Ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. You can join the Everydayer Club, by the way, for ad-free audio, access to our group chat on Discord, and much more. Use the code DEADLINE ahead of the upcoming NHL trade deadline for 1 month free. You can find your show's URL across the Locked On spectrum. Just check out your favorite show on YouTube to find out what their Discord URL is. Get an invite there today. All right. 3 games left tonight. We're going to get through all of them in this segment, TJ. And it's funny in a way. They're all kind of odd in their own way. Why don't we start with the drunkest of the 3 of them? That would be Columbus and New York. I still haven't sobered up from watching this game. Columbus jumps out to a 4-0 lead. And the thing is, Columbus dominated, I thought, the first period. They led 2-0 at the end of the first. They led 4-0 at the end of the second, but I thought they got a little lucky. I didn't think they played a great second period. I thought the Rangers started to show some pushback in the second period, but Igor Shesterkin didn't have his best night, and Columbus saw the puck luck. And that's usually how it goes, right? 4-0 is not necessarily just a lead you build through being better. You also need a little bit of the puck luck as well. And then in the third, Columbus lacked the luck while New York started making a really big push, scored 2 goals in 54 seconds to open the period, and then tied the game in forced overtime. A big night for Gabe Perreault, who had 2 goals and an assist in the third period. I think he became the first New York Ranger rookie to do that in 33 years last I saw, which is pretty impressive in one period to score 3 points as a rookie. Kirill Marchenko had a big night tonight for Columbus. He scored 2 goals and had an assist, including on the winner in overtime from Adam Fantilli, who also had a really nice night. This game was completely drunk.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I feel so bad for the Rangers fans because you didn't deserve to really, the team earned that point, right? I mean, you're down 4-0 going into the third. You battle your way back with 4 goals in the period to force overtime. But at the end of the day, you don't get the victory. So you're so far out of this thing. What did that really do for you? I mean, it's backbreaking to get so, if you're a Rangers fan, to get so pumped in that third that, oh man, we might actually pull this one out, because at this point, when you're so far out of it, every win as a fan is something that you can take with you and be like, okay, we're not as bad, but then you just get to overtime and lose it. It's just so backbreaking. And I feel for the Rangers because they truly are this retool that they're calling it. Let's be honest. It's not, it's a rebuild. They can mince words all they want. They're going to be going through some changes here in the next week, in the next couple months. Once the offseason starts, it's going to be a very different New York Rangers team. And this was just a backbreaking loss for them. They really had no business being in this game and making it to overtime, but they did, and then they couldn't pull it out.
Let's hear from Jay Forster, who's the host of Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets, with the final word on this game.
My God, they made that difficult for themselves. Blue Jackets win somehow, 5-4 in overtime against the New York Rangers. They tried really, really hard to lose that game. That was a meltdown that we haven't seen since Rick Bowness took over, which does worry me because I thought that they were over the meltdowns. They were up 4-0 after 2 periods. I was like, this is great. I feel good. Everyone's having fun. We're laughing. They had that insane goalie interference called back. They scored a short-handed goal like 20 seconds later. Everyone was loving life. And then they scored 2 goals in the first, or they allowed 2 goals, I should say, in the first, minute of the third period. And I was like, right, okay, well, I've seen this before. And sure enough, they blow the game. They win it in overtime. Kirill Marchenko, shout out to him. That entire top line I thought was pretty good. Adam Fantilli had at least a goal and an assist. I think a second assist as well, which if Adam Fantilli gets hot, watch out. That's only good news. But I think the lasting story from this game is going to be, oh, good, another game where they blow it in the third period. They've been doing so well at not doing that, and then they turn around and they do it. We're going to break down the game on tomorrow's episode, because if I go much longer on this, I'll be here for 30 minutes yelling about this third period. But come check us out at Locked On Blue Jackets, where I will probably continue to be mad, even though they won. That's all coming up on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blue Jackets.
We don't have a ton of time to get into this, but I will say I actually thought in real time I hated the goalie interference call. I thought it was the right call after A, it was thoroughly explained to me, and B, watching it a few times. He does Lafreniere clips the goal. I mean, it's very light, but he clips the skate of Elvis Merzlikins, and it probably is the reason he couldn't push off.
You can't really mince whether all you can do is look at it and see is there contact, and you can't determine whether or not that contact truly is affecting the goaltender or not. So if you see the contact, it's almost always going to go in favor of goalie interference. It's just the way it is.
It was tight, but I think it was ultimately the right call. Philadelphia and Toronto. This one could be called the All Disappointment Bowl. I know Philadelphia's expectations weren't sky high, but I still think there's an expectation that they could be better than this. This was a better performance from them overall tonight, and they get the win as a result. And I think, look, this is true. Anytime Philadelphia gets to a shootout, they're going to have a legitimate chance because they have so much skill between Matvei Michkov and Trevor Zegras. And of course, those guys scored. I thought Zegras' goal to win it was the shootout goal was absolutely filthy. There is no debating that guy has a bonkers amount of talent. Toronto gets a point out of this one, but boy, it sure feels like their season is has completely hit the skids at this point. 3-2 final in this one with the shootout win for Philly.
For Toronto, I mean, look, mathematically, they're not that bad. They're 7 points out of that final wild card spot. On the other side, Philly now only 4 points after the win. We're going to talk about this again coming up in the third segment as well. But if I'm Toronto, I'm going to be a little bit aggressive in the way that I approach the trade deadline, and we can get into that a little bit more. But this was a backbreaker, and like you said, no one wants to see Philadelphia in the shootout this year. With the way Zegras has been, he's been one of the best in the league in the shootout, and Michkov as well. It's just you don't want to see Philly in the shootout. Either beat them in overtime or don't even let it get to that point.
Yes. And one last game that we have to mention, contractually obligated to discuss, but this did not. And I really feel for Vancouver fans at this point. This just didn't feel like two NHL teams. This felt like an NHL team and like a very good AHL team. And Dallas wins 6-1 over Vancouver. Vancouver got on the board first with a goal from Evander Kane, and then it was 6 consecutive Dallas goals. And the thing that's crazy is I actually calculated this. So 15 total Dallas points in this game. 9 of them came from the bottom of the lineup, from players who typically play in their bottom 6 at forward, or in their, bottom 4 defensive players. So top pair, top 6, got some points tonight, but it was a lot of depth pieces that were taking it to Vancouver in this one. And while it wasn't the depth pieces necessarily who had sort of the Globetrotter goal, it was Duchesne, Steele, and Heiskanen that made it 4-1, just a filthy, sick, no-look pass. It's tough to watch this, man. I really do. You want to talk about feeling bad for fans? Ranger fans now have Shesterkin and Fox back, right? So they've played a bunch of competitive hockey games. What does Vancouver have right now? They have a player in Elias Pettersson who's been a disaster for a couple of years now, who's just fallen off a cliff like we've never seen before. And now the team is completely adrift.
Yeah, 14 total shots on goal against Ottinger. I mean, that's just it's pathetic. It's anemic. I mean, what do they really have going for him? And what happened to Brock Besser? I mean, this is a guy that's completely disappeared over the last couple of years. He was one of the big key young pieces, first round pick, one of those guys that was supposed to be the future for the Canucks. He and Hughes, and, they just had so many pieces, and it's just completely fallen apart. It's really hard to watch.
Yeah, I don't know what comes next. I can only hope for Vancouver fans' sake that they at least get rewarded with the top pick, because this is it's not even going to be close. There's no one who has a chance at this point, I think, of catching Vancouver for the best odds. That is, it's been an unfortunate season. All right, we are going to take one final break. We're going rapid fire in the next segment. TJ and I are going to challenge ourselves to work through 12 questions, one for each team tonight, in about 5 minutes or less, in an order of our choosing. The question is, can we do it? One for each team tonight. That is next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. There is nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, energy, the moment, getting tickets. That part's not always so simple. That's why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast and without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. Pull up the Gametime app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and you'll get those tickets locked in minutes. I love seeing the all-in price up front, no surprise fees at checkout, great last-minute options with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. So do yourself a favor, take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That is code Locked On for 20. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. All right, rapid fire time. We came up with 12 questions. We're going to rotate back and forth, and I'm going to start, TJ, I think with the burning question of the night after they got a win. Do the Detroit Red Wings need to swing for the fences at this trade deadline?
Yeah, as long as this injury to John Gibson isn't major, then I think it's worth it for them to try and trade away some of their younger pieces and assets to make that big swing. If Gibson's hurt, then I think you got to focus entirely on goaltending.
Okay, I think it's Vincent Trocheck, by the way. That's the guy if I were Detroit, but that would be where I would go.
How about Nashville? Do you see them doing anything?
I have no idea what the plan is, obviously, with Trotz getting ready to step down and handling this deadline. I think, if anything, I'm thinking Michael Bunting is the piece that's going to go. This has been a good story. Nashville has fought their way back into relevance, but they're not good enough to be a playoff team in my mind in a difficult Central Division. So I think Michael Bunting is going to be potentially a critical piece for a team like Tampa Bay because Nashville can retain, and Tampa loves a good bully who can also put the puck in the net.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you.
Is there an elite winger out there? So this is based on Seattle was heavily invested in the Artemi Panarin deal. He didn't want to go there. There was a rumor that The Athletic reported that they would be willing to part with a guy like Shane Wright, just recently the 4th overall pick in a recent draft, if they could find an elite winger. Is there one out there?
Elite, obviously, depends on who you consider elite, but if Toronto ends up being sellers, I can see a guy like Nylander heading over to Seattle in exchange for a Shane Wright to help them start with their rebuild / retool, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a couple of options out there. It just really depends on whether or not that team wants to bring on a Shane Wright and if they're going to fit that system. How about Colorado? Do you think they have another Brock Nelson up their sleeve?
I don't see how they could afford to do it in terms of an asset perspective, but I don't ever really rule out anything with the Sakic McDonald group. I think the coolest thing that they could do would be finding a way to bring Ryan O'Reilly back to finish his career in Colorado, which I don't even know if Ryan O'Reilly would be willing to do with the way things ended there, but it would be so cool. It would be so cool to see it all come back full circle.
For how good that team is right now, I'd go back there even if there is bad blood just for the chance of getting a cup. Just me personally.
So on Friday at 3:00, here's the question. Will the New York Rangers have parted with Vincent Trocheck?
Absolutely. And I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. I'm not buying this retool. I expect them to be heavy sellers. Any of that middling talent with expiring contracts, even guys with maybe another year on their contract, I can see everybody being on the table and them really reworking their roster. So I say yes. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying the only reason I could see them hanging on to him is if the offers are not there, they don't have to trade him because he does have a couple of years left on his deal.
Just don't be too picky because look at what's going on around you.
Sure.
You got to deal, got to wheel and deal when it's time to make a change. Speaking of a team that doesn't really wheel and deal all that often, Carolina, do you think they have another big swing coming up?
I think this year they did it with Gensel. They did it with Rantanen. And obviously I never agreed with the decision that they made there on trading. I think they should have kept him and just said, screw it. We're going for it. All right. Carolina's MO is that they want guys with term. Go get Vincent Trocheck. You already have familiarity with him in the system. You know he can fit. You've had a need at number 2 center since the minute he walked out the door, and he's got 3 years left on his deal. Go do it. You know he works in the system. Get it done.
Yeah, 100%.
Columbus, they have been weird. They're in the race. We know they've already fired a coach and made a couple of big trades to try to not be a doormat this year. Should they consider dealing what was once considered one of the key pieces of their rebuild in Kent Johnson, who has struggled this season, to try to continue making that push, even though they're currently on the outside?
If I'm Don Waddell in this situation, going back to Carolina, guy who's used to not making big splashes, I don't deal Johnson at this moment. With the coaching change in the middle of the season, let Rick Bowness have another opportunity with him next season. I mean, the team is good. So to get rid of him, just for a part-time rental or whatever it is that you might bring in, I think that does more harm than it does good in the long run. Yeah, it might help you make a deeper playoff run, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's what's going to take you over the top and you're all of a sudden going to be a Stanley Cup contender. So I think you just keep Kent Johnson, you let Rick Bowness have him for another year or however long the contract goes for him, and just keep him as a part of this piece. I think this is a fluke down year for him.
Let's do one more and then we'll get out of here.
So is there any move that Philly can make that really makes sense for them?
No, not in the trade market. It's time to give Trevor Zegras his contract extension. That is the only move in my mind that makes sense.
I think that they should make a splash and go get an actual true superstar scorer, but that's just me. And obviously that's easier said than done.
Right. Might be more of an off-season thing for the Philadelphia Flyers. Well, not bad. We got through 8 of 12, and that's where we will leave it for today. Maybe we'll get through more of these tomorrow. If you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, there is a Locked On NHL Team pod and YouTube show for you. We have one for every NHL team. This show, Locked On NHL Game Night, is here for you each and every night of the regular season and the playoffs, wrapping up the night in the NHL. That playoffs is key because that is fast approaching, and we are going to be here every single night. I'm actually incredibly excited for it because that's the hockey that's going to be closest to Olympic hockey, is best on best in the NHL playoff hockey. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this show. If you are watching on YouTube, we want to see your thoughts on tonight's games. Maybe we want to see some of your thoughts on the questions that we just went through rapid fire. That's it for tonight on Locked On NHL Game Night. For TJ Shalott, I'm Alex Wiederspiel. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.